Hello, everyone. This is your host, Akil Jabbar, and welcome back to another episode of SaaS District. In today's episode, we'll be talking about remote work, business automation, and the importance of mixing voice, video, and SMS in your SaaS business. Today, we have our guest, Lon Baker, joining us. Lon is the COO at Virtual PBX, an award-winning business voice-over IP provider. With a unified communication strategy, Virtual PBX lets you connect your users over traditional phones, computers, or mobile devices. It also lets you transform any location into a productive home office, greet customers using their virtual receptionist, route calls by department, update your business hours, start a video conference call, and much, much more. So welcome, Lon. Super excited to have you on the SaaS District show today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
So before the show, you mentioned something interesting. Virtual PBX started, I think, back in 1998. They're over 20 years old. You started off as a customer. But before talking about that, I want to hear about your background in entrepreneurship. You built a company in the past called MailTank. And then you joined the team back in 2009. Can you share a little bit about that?
A former business partner and myself back in the late 90s decided to start a help desk system, a distributed help desk system, kind of before there was such a thing as the cloud or remote work. And so we actually built a distributed ticketing system and had agents spread across the country in the US and a couple overseas in Europe also that handled pay-per-call tech support for customers for when they had products that were unsupported by their companies. And so we did that, and we did that for about 10 years. And I actually used Virtual PBX in 1998 as part of that service.
Okay. And then what happened with that company? Is that still running? Did you exit it, or what happened?
Me and my former partner separated. We parted ways. The company wasn't growing the way I wanted to grow. And so I decided to go on to other opportunities. And actually, Virtual PBX kind of recruited me away.
Nice. And where are you guys in terms of size today? Have you guys raised any external capital? Are you guys fully bootstrapped? Tell us a little bit more about the company.
We are 100% bootstrapped, been bootstrapped since day one. We've always been private. And because we're private, we don't really reveal publicly the exact revenue size we are. I would say that we are a mid-tier player in the VoIP market, I would say at this point, and we're on our way up. And we have team members spread all across the U.S. at this point. We're a fully distributed company. We've been that way for about 5 years now. And we also service customers in about 40 countries around the world.
Okay, so growing quite nicely here.
Yeah.
So, phone apps, lower costs, recordings, and some other advanced features like call queues kind of come to mind when thinking about the benefits of using something like voice over IP technology. What would you say are some other pros of using this type of system over, conventional communication methods right now, especially as a SaaS company, teams being remote based?
Oh, well, I can speak to why I chose this company when I was a company separate of Virtual PBX, right?
Okay.
We chose it because we wanted to have a technology that allowed us to be distributed, that you could work from anywhere, anytime. At the time, we were actually doing a lot of trade shows and traveling to a lot of client sites. Well, we needed our phone to follow us, right, wherever we went. But we also didn't want our cell phone to be our business line because we were a company with multiple employees. We wanted to have a presence, a business entity. And that was the advantage of really using a cloud-based phone system at the time. And that's what it still is today. A lot of companies come to us for that exact reason. It's not just for the underlying technology, which is really interesting, but it's also for that ability to have that kind of unified presence out in the world that's easy to manage, right? For all your employees, no matter where they work. And to speak to that a little bit, all this technology, all the call queues and VoIP and all the fun things that we do that are interesting technology, the buzzwords, right, in our industry. When COVID hit last year, most of our customers seamlessly transitioned because our system was designed for that. They didn't have to think about it. We actually helped a lot of companies that had hardware-based systems, right? Or physical presence they had to have with phones on desks, transition quickly to remote work with soft phones and web phones and things like that. And that is one reason why a platform like ours and technology like VoIP, honestly, is critical this day and age.
And so that's kind of the pros. Would you say there are any kind of downsides to using this? What comes to mind? It's kind of the dependency on stable internet connection. Both sides, right? The caller or the receiver, right? That can definitely mess up the overall quality of your experience using it.
Being in this industry, I never like to talk about the downsides of my product, right? That's one thing I don't want to do. But I will say this: I mean, we all have seen it, especially in the last year, right? As people work remotely and have to adapt how they do things. I'd say the biggest challenge really is that we all are sharing common internet connections, right? And so as soon as you move to a remote location, or your home or a remote office you're unfamiliar with, you don't know what the quality of the internet connection will be. Luckily, in most areas of the world, even this point, even some of the cellular stuff is quite amazing in that sense. That it's not as big an issue, but the one downside will be is when there's a regional internet issue. We have that on occasion where some of our customers are impacted, for example, on a random occasion when, for example, in one region, an internet provider has an issue. That's probably the one thing that's kind of beyond the control of both us as well as the customer. We all see it. You see it on Twitter, right? Where it's like, Google's down this morning for everybody, right? Or Slack's down for everybody. That's the one downside, I'd say, at cloud, but it's closing quickly. People are we built a very interesting architecture that routes around most of that in most cases.
Yeah, I mean, just quick stats here. I'm saying, I think 94% of the people in the US are connected to the internet, right? So that's that's kind of a given. But I mean, what happens to companies in developing countries, or if you're targeting a specific segment where percentage is lower? Do you guys have any technology or anything that can be adapted to those kind of special circumstances, or have you seen anything that's coming up?
Yeah, the places we're really most excited by are software-based phones, right? And WebRTC are the two technologies that we're really most interested in because they've allowed us to deploy. For example, we have distributed call centers often, and those distributed call centers may have agents spread either globally or in other countries. And the software-based as well as WebRTC-based phones allow us to deploy voice in those areas, and you'd be surprised at both the call quality as well as the low-tech devices those agents or those users can use and still have great quality. We've been surprised. We've actually had someone actually doing calls literally in a small house in the middle of Philippines or India, right? And we're surprised when they call in for some support issue, I need to configure my phone. We're like, where are you located? And we're just like, oh, okay. And also the technology. Engineers are really clever. We keep improving the codecs, which allow you to deliver great voice and video over less and less bandwidth. And that's really made a huge change, probably I'd say in the last 4 or 5 years in particular.
So I want to talk about one point you mentioned, which is about, during COVID, where a lot of those, specialized hardware, people at the offices had the hardware for phone services to connect their systems to, public phone networks. Now, maybe for SaaS companies right now who have, sales teams who are working in the office and are making that shift, can you talk about how that can, be easily replaced? And then does that also work for, at any scale, say enterprise, large clients who have, hundreds or if not thousands of these?
Yeah, you mean replacing hardware with software, replacing on-premise with cloud. It's all relatively, it really comes down to a logistical issue, as well as honestly a cultural issue. We've encountered that recently, especially with COVID, where some companies embrace it, right? They really, the managers have to embrace the change. The technology is relatively simple, honestly. There are complexities in networks and security, as well as regulatory compliance in some industries. But it's really a cultural shift. We went through it ourselves internally about 5 years ago when I, as COO, made the choice to, hey, let's allow our team to work from wherever they want and let them get out of the office. We had kind of a central office we'd had for a decade. Everybody went to the office every day. Everybody sat in the cubicles. Everybody sat in their offices talking to each other with phones on their desk. And we said, well, let's get everybody out of there. And we learned it had to be a cultural change. The managers had to embrace it because the technology is easy. Whether I need to ship a hardware phone to a employee at their home, or whether I have to give them a soft phone to install on their computer or their mobile phone, or whether I just have to give them a web browser based phone to load up in their on their Chromebook, right? That technology is the easy piece, right? The hard piece is getting the cultural shift to where management as well as the team members embrace it and enjoy it.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's always the biggest challenge, right? It is the biggest challenge. Yeah. Getting to use the technology as simple, as easy as possible without that pushback. And yeah,
exactly.
What about when it comes to security? Because I can imagine, there's call encryption, there's voice over IP security, and now with privacy concerns growing among people all over the world, right? Facebook, you have Apple, you have people just super concerned about this matter. Is this user data, typically safe technology? And where do you guys stand on this matter? How have you guys handled that?
Well, we do support a number of encryption technologies, including sRTP, TLS for the SIP signaling and things like that. But a big cultural thing and a big policy thing we made years and years and years ago was that, for one thing, we don't retain any customer data, beyond the time that we're required for regulations. So we don't have a huge warehouse of customer data that we then go mine for statistics or anything like that. We do nothing with that. Our customer data is only stored for the customer. We also have compliance things in place to handle whether it's US based or EU based, for example. And we comply with all the GDPR and those kind of regulations, as well as California has a regulation around privacy. But our big privacy focus for years now has been that our customers' data is their data. We do not store it beyond what we have to store. We only store the bare minimum amount of data we need to store. And that was a big change, because if we don't have it, we don't have any privacy concerns, right? And that was a big piece. We didn't want to keep any data that we didn't absolutely have to have for the customers to deliver the service they want, or to meet any kind of regulatory things we have to meet. Beyond that, we don't want the data.
Makes sense. I like that. So, can you give us some examples? People in our audience, typically SaaS founders, SaaS marketers, how could you say they can start, best leveraging using this technology within their business? And what would you say is the right balance, right? You mentioned, voice, video, messages. How much should we be focusing on each? Where are you seeing the trends going?
I'll tell you the big trends. Obviously, in the last year, video has become a huge piece. We rolled out video conferencing last year also as part of that because people needed it to work remotely. That said, we think that voice and texting are really the bigger players in the market, because that's what are both more efficient. They found in studies that actually voice communications are more effective than video communication. And so that's a piece that we think is really important. But texting especially, as new generations enter the workforce, they are more embracing text and more asynchronous communication, right? That texting allows to occur versus having to schedule a call between two people. So we think texting and voice are really critical. Plus, you can deliver voice anywhere in the world really easily over almost any network. Video is a little trickier. Plus, as we setting up this today, right? Having the right video camera, having a good microphone, having good audio, that's a lot more cumbersome for most employees. Whereas, hey, having a great video call or voice call and having texting, you can give that to any employee quickly, and they can use it almost anywhere all the time.
And you mentioned, you guys do voice, now you have the video conferencing and text kind of growing. So you have some of the big players, right? The Slack, the Google Hangouts, the Zoom. You guys have been around for 21 years or so or more. You're now kind of a leader in the space, but how do you guys stay, competitive and compete with those big players and kind of stand out?
Well, our biggest way of standing out is, one philosophy I've always had is customer service beats everything, right? So giving great customer service and being honest with your customers about what you can and can't do for them, right? To make sure your product fits their needs, right? That's key up front. If you got the expectations right, you'll knock their socks off every time. But the second piece really comes down to, we've partnered with our 20 years of experience, a lot of things we have tremendous experience in, so we can quickly see a trend coming and either build or alter a solution we currently have to meet that trend. Or we've identified the key technologies, the key open source technologies, the key partners, and we partner with companies when we need to in order to deliver all the solutions customers are expecting. And that's how we kind of stay up to pace, being a mid-sized company with the larger companies. And we actually have some exciting things in the works this year that are going to close the gap on those larger companies. And one thing's great. Open source and the internet makes it easy for you to compete with pretty much any size company if you really want to.
That's true. I think your first point is super important. I think that Jeff Bezos mentioned that years ago, right? When he was building out Amazon, he said, "Hey, aren't you going to become a real estate player or no warehouse and you're going to build all these things?" He's like, "No, I'm building a customer-based company. That's all it is. Everything is for the customer service. That's what they ask, and that's what we build for them." So
that's the key. Yeah, you have to go after customers. You have to deliver what the customer wants, and you have to make sure that you're in alignment with what they need. Because there are times when we're not in alignment. They need something different than what we can deliver, and if we just sell it to them, they're not going to be happy.
That's true. You can't force it onto them. Yeah. So if I'm a SaaS company, I'm the customer. What should I be looking for if I'm exploring all these different options? There's so many unified, messaging providers or VoIP providers. What should I be looking for?
Well, it's interesting you say that. There are two things that I think. Obviously, I'm a COO, so you know me. As a COO of a company, I'm always looking for the best service at the best price that meets all the needs. Right? That's the business side of the world, and that's the nickels and dimes. But the real key thing is, will your choice scale with your business and will give you flexibility in the future? Or are you locking yourselves into something? And we recently had a customer come to us who actually had bought a proprietary system, and it did everything they wanted for their business. And then one day something happened to it. And when it happened, their entire business came to a grinding halt. and they now have to go and rebuild all that. And we're helping them in the meantime while they do that. But they locked themselves into a proprietary system. And now once it broke, everything in their business stopped because everything was in that one box. And so, what our philosophy has always been that we put our services where customers want to work. So whether they want to work in Slack or Google or Microsoft Teams, whether they want to integrate with one of thousands of services, we decide to integrate our platform with Zapier and give a developer API so they can build into whatever they want. So that way they can use our voice services or just our text services or just our video services and integrate it into whatever their business needs. So that way all their eggs aren't in one basket, right? And they have opportunity to grow. And as we grow, they get new opportunities. And that's a big piece. Make sure you don't lock yourself into some proprietary system that if something goes wrong or if that company changes directions, now you have to re-architect your entire business around it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the issue, right? A lot of people lock into things of what their reliability needs are, for the next 6 months or 1 year. But what happens when you actually hit growth in 5 years and now you're stuck with this and you have a mess to work with, right? And
exactly.
Long term, yeah. A quick note from our sponsors today, and we'll be right back. Being a great manager has never been harder. The relationship between employees and their managers is the key driver of workplace productivity and engagement. We believe with the right tools, managers can be exceptional leaders. WorkPatterns is designed to make team management easier than ever by enabling continuous one-on-one feedback, collaborative meetings, goal tracking, and workflow management all in one place. Whether you're a manager struggling to stay on top of things or a CEO whose organization has outgrown its systems, visit workpatterns.com to see how they can help. Now, back to the show.
Yeah, and to that point real quick, the interesting part about that is that over the last 11 years or so I've been with the company, we've kind of rebuilt our entire platform. We've taken our company to a whole new phase of growth and evolution at this point. And those are the lessons that I learned coming out of that was that, don't lock yourself into a proprietary system or into some long-term contract or into a certain technology and not be open to other things that you can do. An example being perfectly as we're seeing coming out of the colleges now, Chromebooks are flying out of the colleges. They're faster growing than anything else when it comes to your K through 12 education. Chromebooks is now the biggest segment of technology. Well, for me as a leader in business and technology, when you're talking about that, and SaaS, in particular, which I know is your focal point, is I'm going, well, the next generation of kids are going to be looking at that and they might come out of school and go, that was so easy to use. I want to use that. Well, I need to make sure my platform is ready to deliver services. And to that end, a couple of years ago, we built a web-based phone that works perfectly well on a Chromebook. So if a company wants to deploy something inexpensive to employees, we're there. And that's kind of my philosophy of we put our services where people want to work so they can be flexible in their choices, not locked into a choice that we force on them.
And you're thinking a lot ahead and looking at different kind of trends to see where to anticipate to be. So you mentioned growth. That's kind of an interesting strategy. Do you have any other growth strategies or experiments that you'd say have worked best for you guys in growing Virtual PBX to where it is today? More just for SaaS founders who are looking to learn and apply some of those.
Yeah, we definitely, after 21 years, we have a lot of battle scars, right? So we've been through the ups and the downs of everything you can imagine in the SaaS world, because we were a SaaS company before there was such thing as SaaS, right? Being in 98. There was no SaaS companies in 98, right? Actually, I'll just tell you a quick anecdote. Pac Bell, which was the actual phone company back in the day, when we told them what we were doing, said it was impossible. They literally said it was impossible for us to do what we were going to do. And we actually built our first system in a garage in San Francisco, pulling in T1 lines that Pac Bell had no idea what we were going to do. And they swore it could not be done. And that's the kind of thing. And for SaaS founders, I think that's a key thing is that there's so many ideas floating around in your business all the time. If you're paying attention to trends on social media or, the barrage of emails from all these consultants and analysts out there, they'll always be telling you the trend. But the trends you're going to pick up the best are watching what people like yourself, your peers are doing in their businesses and using that feedback loop to drive yourself forward. What are your peers choosing? Right, to do with their businesses as far as technology choices, hiring choices, where team members are going to work, and identifying those and following those trends. And then when it comes to growth strategies, it really is looking for what industries are growing and focusing on what services you can deliver to those industries and not worrying about the industries that aren't growing.
And on the other side, so I mean, just to kind of, how do you have any kind of specific strategies on what you use to kind of be on top of understanding those market trends and being on top of it? Anything that you kind of do?
My team hates me in a sense that way, because I have a routine where I have this, I kind of a process using the app called Notion, as well as Feedbin for news, Twitter, social media, stuff like that. And I kind of collect it all week. And on the Sunday nights, I sit down and filter through it all. And I come up with, do I see a trend? Do I see a topic that needs to be brought up to my marketing team, my sales team, my operations team? And then every Monday we do kind of a huddle. And I do huddles all week with my team, kind of directing them on, hey, we need to look at this. And of course, that is on top of the layer of every day watching my business. What are my customers saying? Things like that. And I would definitely say the biggest thing that any SaaS company can do is make your communication with your customer as transparent as possible to your entire team. We use the intercom in Slack. We wire those up. I kind of force the intercom onto my support team, actually, so that we can see, instead of bearing in a help desk system somewhere in a ticket, literally all our team can see every conversation with every customer, which means we can pick up on trends, on warning signs with a customer that may be upset, or, hey, they keep asking for this one thing that we don't do. Maybe we should go build that. And that's the transparency of communication with your customer is critical for a SaaS company to succeed.
Nice. So, equally important on the other side is, it's nice to see what's been working for you, but, with your battle scars, it's good to know what hasn't worked, I think. Can you share any kind of failed growth experience that hasn't worked for your business model and you wouldn't do again?
Yeah, well, I can sum up in one big philosophy I've developed over the years is that, be careful not to hurt the momentum you've achieved. When getting your team all focused on a single goal and get everybody marching in a single direction, be careful to not let distractions pull you off course. Really quickly, a distraction, for example, a team member or customer brings you a large opportunity. Hey, if you just do this, here's this whole market you can get. And over the 20 years, many times we've gone marching off in a direction thinking there was a business opportunity or a growth opportunity and spent a bunch of effort, marketing effort, development effort, just time, mind share basically within the team of thinking about it. And you'll waste days or weeks and sometimes months before you realize, hold on, this isn't going to grow my company at all. This isn't going to improve it. So be careful not to allow distractions to pull you off course of the momentum that you've already gained.
I guess you have to find that balance of is it actually momentum or is it something you actually need to pivot? And I think that's the balance, right? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And that's a careful decision that you have to make there. And you sometimes have to go all in and pivot. Exactly.
Kind of going to the personal level, more rapid fire question, Lon.
Sure.
Looking back now, what's, lots of experience, lots of wisdom. What's one piece of advice you wish you had known and would tell your 25-year-old self looking back today?
25-year-old self, know when to kill a product, right? Don't hold on thinking that if I just do this one new thing, the product might survive. That was definitely a couple failed business ideas occurred that way that chewed up way too much time. And also just ship your stuff. Don't wait for it to be perfect. Just ship it. I mean, that's old philosophy. You've heard it all over the internet. You see a lot of people talking about it, but that's just the truth. Just ship what you have and then iterate on it, with customer feedback, and you'll get to where you need it to be. Whereas if you wait for it to be perfect, you'll waste months or years in some cases.
Yeah, I agree with that. Do you have any, way of approaching when to kill a product? Like right now, based off doing it probably several times, when is the right thing, or is it just kind of a gut and, looking at data and you set kind of a hypothesis at the beginning? Is it yes or no kind of decision?
There's a combination. There are sometimes it's gut. We'll get really excited. I kind of a rule now that when someone, whether it's my CEO or whether it's all the way down to a team member or a customer bringing me some great new thing that sounds really exciting, I always sleep on it. I never make a decision in the moment. I always sleep on it and really think it through and see if it fits into the big picture of where we're driving the company and where we're driving our business and what our customers need. The second one, I would say on that point would be I become a data fiend. I actually look at the data very closely. Will it impact the key metrics, that are driving the company forward? Whether it's cost reductions, sales growth, customer satisfaction, across the board. I look at all those. Will it grow revenue? Will it reduce my costs? Will it improve the customer experience? Those are the three key areas. There's a bunch of metrics in all those areas. But if those three areas, it kind of has to tick the box in those areas for it to be worth it.
Love it. That's a great framework. What are some of the biggest challenges you're currently facing in order to continue to grow Virtual PBX? Meaning, what keeps you up at night these days?
I'll be honest. We finished a major platform migration last year where we spent 3 years building a whole new platform that can scale even bigger than we ever dreamed of doing it 20 years ago. And once that was done, I don't worry about sleeping at night because we designed it in a way we can sleep at night, right? We built the technology correctly so we can sleep at night. We don't worry about that. Well, actually, what keeps me up these days is planning what we're doing next. Like I said, I have a routine every Sunday night. My wife goes to bed and I sit there for a couple hours going through my notes, doing my meeting agenda for the week to set out the course for my team to help lead them down to where we want to go. And that's what keeps me up is actually working on it and planning it and the excitement of doing it. I really never stay up anymore worrying about what's going to go wrong.
I love it. That's a good place to be in.
Yeah.
Lon, who or what are the best 3 resources? It could be books, people, mentors, people you follow, who you'd say have been the most instrumental to your success over these last few years?
Oh, wow. Well, obviously, for inspiration, I look at Elon Musk. I only look at Elon Musk, not for just for his pragmatic approach to problem solving. Nothing more than that. His pragmatic, data-driven approach to problem solving. Hey, it's obvious we need to do this. Let's do it, right? And then there's a software person that I met years ago. He's a little controversial right now, maybe. David Hansen, DHH from Basecamp, and formerly 37 Signals. His approach to building software, I actually sat when he first launched what they call Ruby on Rails. I actually paid to go to a conference in San Francisco where he and I think 2 other members of his team presented their concept for building software, right, before they got big. And that one meeting, that one 2-hour, 3-hour engagement, watching them explain how they build software and how to build a company for customers, changed my life for how I want to do things in business completely. Setting aside whatever they do in their company, that's exactly what I just embrace, that philosophy of you build pragmatic software that delivers exactly what customers want and you have an opinion about it so customers know what you're delivering. And then I don't really have another one beyond those 2 right now that I can think off the top of my head, other than I am obsessive about using TweetDeck and filtering on topics around people building businesses. There are some great hashtags you can follow right now on Twitter around people who are building businesses in the open, as they call it, where they actually just expose exactly, here's what I tried, here's what worked, here's what failed. And by the way, here's my dashboard every month of what I'm actually succeeding at financially in this business. And watching that, you can learn so many lessons from those people. Or after being around for 21 years in business, you're reminded of lessons you may have forgotten.
That's true. You also need that reminder. It's easy to forget.
Yes.
Yeah. Lon, what does success mean to you today? Whether that's personally, financially, business, life? No, there's no right answer.
I can't complain about anything in life right now. I feel blessed and lucky to be where I'm at in life. That said, I am so excited by the future and what we're going to achieve in the future at our company, as well as both personally for myself, as well as for the company and the team members. We have a small, tight-knit team. They're all shareholders in the company. We believe in sharing that with the company. Again, benefits of being a private company. We can share with the team members, right? And we don't have to worry about investors. And so I'm really excited by what we can deliver to all of them, but to help them achieve what they want to do in their lives, as well as help our customers. And I know that all sounds a little cliche, but that really is the philosophy of our company. It's been that way. That's why I've been around 21 years as a private company. We're based in Silicon Valley. We've been private for 21 years. And I do think that's an achievement. That's a testament to the founders of the company. That was a philosophy they had. And trust me, people show up all the time wanting to hand us checks to invest in our company. And we always say no, because it would take us away from the core philosophy and principles of our company. And that's something I'm very proud of at this point.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. If you're in business for 21 years, I mean, these days, that seems like a long time. But I mean, you guys have built something impressive, and congrats to you. Yeah.
Oh, thanks so much.
Cool. This has been a great, Lon. I really appreciated you jumping on. Like this conversation. Last question: where can our founders get in touch with you, learn more about you, and kind of what you're working on at Virtual PBX?
Well, they can always hit me up on email, lon.baker@virtualpbx.com. I'm happy I answer all my emails. Also, you can follow me on LinkedIn at Lon Baker /Lon Baker at LinkedIn. I don't really keep on Twitter. I follow Twitter, but I don't post on Twitter. It's a little too. It is what it is, right?
Sure.
But those are really the places I follow. And of course, I work with my marketing team. I publish blogs on occasion on our blog at virtualpbx.com. And so that's where we're going to do a lot more writing there. We're also going to start our own little video series on YouTube pretty soon here, where I'll be talking about the business lessons we're learning.
Love it. Look forward to seeing it. And we'll add those links to our show notes for people to check out and say hi to Lon. Thanks again, Lon. I appreciate you jumping on today. It was great chatting with you.
Thank you so much.
Cheers. Thank you all for watching this episode and joining SaaS District today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for future episodes where we interview top leaders in the SaaS industry. If you're a SaaS company looking to grow and unlock the true value of your business, get in touch with us at Horizon Capital, and myself or one of our consultants will provide a free assessment to help you get there and hit your goals. If you have any feedback or suggestions for this podcast, please comment down below and help us improve our content for you all. Thanks again, and see you on the next one.